Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I haven't had a video up because I dropped my camera and I broke it, and I broke it pretty badly. So I had to send it out for repairs. Now I have it back, it's all fixed, thank goodness. I've got some exciting things that I want to tackle. So I'm gonna walk over there and show you guys what it is that I'm gonna be working on. I've collected so much furniture from Marketplace, antique furniture, really good solid pieces that have pretty ugly or worn fabric. And my plan is to start today on one of those projects. What I have here is 2 wingback chairs that structurally are in excellent condition, but the fabric, it's awful. I got them from a resale shop probably close to 15 years ago now. And when I bought them, I didn't like the fabric, so I used fabric paint on them. And that worked pretty good for a little while, but that was a long time ago. The paint has really worn down. They just don't look good at all. I'm a little nervous because I've never done anything this complex before. I've only done like chair seats, and this is a full wingback chair. Like I said, 2 of them. I need to learn how to sew a box cushion for the seat. My plan is to get started on these today, and I'm gonna do that by taking one of the chairs apart and leaving the other one intact so I can use it kind of as a reference point for putting together the first chair. Another thing I'm gonna do as I take this apart, I'm gonna take a lot of pictures. I'm gonna mark all the different pieces. I'm gonna label them with a Sharpie. That way I, don't get confused later on when I'm trying to cut out all the pieces and put this back together. So here is the chair. You can see like it's dirty, the fabric itself. The seat has some like dirt marks on it, water marks. I'll show you the back here. So this is what the fabric was, and this is how it looked after I chalk painted it 15 years ago. They are, let's see, Ethan Allen is the brand, and they are in fantastic shape. Nothing's wobbly or wiggly or loose or anything. So that makes them, in my opinion, the perfect candidate to reupholster. If I turn this around, I can show you, a long time ago added these tacks. They're not even real. There's like one real one, and then it's like a strip of 4 and then another real one. So these will be really easy for me to pull out. It was a fun project at the time, but I've come a long way, or at least I hope I have, when it comes to upscaling things. And this is like in my early years of learning how to upscale furniture. And back in the day when everybody chalk painted everything, so did I. And yeah, it doesn't look great. I've invested in all the right tools for upholstery, and I'm willing to take my time. So I think this chair here has a ton of potential. Like I said, I have 2 of these chairs. One of them is inside, the other one's out in the garage. I'm actually gonna grab that one and bring it upstairs because I think this is gonna be a messy project and I really don't wanna live around it downstairs. So the best option is to just work upstairs in the loft, and I can have my air compressor and my nail gun up there, and it won't be in the way. I won't have to live around it for the next, I don't know, couple of weeks. I have the chair up here. I know that when you assemble a chair, there's like an order that it has to go together, which means like you reverse engineer it, right? You take it apart the opposite. I'm gonna take all of these nail heads out first, and then I'm gonna start tearing it apart, probably from the back panel forward, but I guess we'll see once we get into it. So I'm gonna grab my staple puller and my awl. That is a great tool, I love that thing, and a couple other tools that I think might work well. I'm getting all of these nail heads out. I've been working on this just for a couple of minutes, and I've already got most of this fake nail head trim off. I just got a little ways to go here on this side. There's a little bit on the very bottom of the front of the chair down here, so I'm gonna get that off here next. So I have to tell you, I am so glad I kept these chairs. We were antiquing one time, Aaron and I, 15 years ago, and I found this pair and they were in such great shape way back then, I didn't know how to upholster anything, and I wouldn't have even attempted back then. Thought someday I will reupholster those, you know, I'll learn how and I'll attempt it. But I'm so glad I kept them because I just love the shape of them. And I've been ordering tons of beautiful different samples of fabric that, you know, looked good online, but you never know until you get it in person and can feel the texture and can see the colors. So I always order sometimes like between 10 to 20, this time I think over 30 samples, because I have so many different furniture pieces to do. And I wanted to make sure I chose all the different fabric for all the different chairs and sofas that I have to reupholster. I wanted it to all look good together. You know, I wanted to make sure if I was using more than one green or brown that they complemented each other and didn't just look off. I can't wait to take you back downstairs and show you all the different samples that I ordered. I won't show you all of them, but I'll show you the ones that I've got it narrowed down to. And the main thing I'm trying to figure out is what color fabric I'm gonna use for the piping, because I would love to do a contrasting piping on these two chairs. I had this idea. What if I take the samples that I ordered, and I've got 3 different ones I'm trying to decide between, and I keep going back and forth, and as soon as I think I've made up my mind, I change my mind again. So I think if I take those samples, run them through the sewing machine and make some welt, some piping, and then I hold it up to my big fabric swatch that I have, that's gonna be the main fabric. I think that'll help me decide, seeing it with that contrasting color. So I've got 3 very different colors that I'm trying to choose from. So that's definitely something I have to get narrowed down here in the next day or 2, because I've got to get my materials ordered so I can get these put back together. This one last tack does not want to come out. Oh, there we go. Ta-da! All right, done with that. Time to turn the chair around and start tearing off the fabric. I've been sitting here studying this chair, trying to figure out how this goes together and where I should start ripping. I think I should take the back panel off first. I'm just trying to figure out how in the world they attach this back panel. I'm looking at the piping here and it's perfect. My guess is, and I don't even know the actual term for this, but I know that there's like a strip that you can put on the back side of the fabric, and then you fold it over and it holds it like really straight. I'll Google it and I'll see what that strip is called. I can't remember, but you know me, I don't always know what I'm doing, but I am willing to dive in and figure it out as I go. I've done enough projects in my life. I know just enough to be dangerous. All right, I think I'm gonna start in this bottom corner and peel it up and see what I find. Yup, I can feel it. There's a strip here. It feels like it's metal. That is what's holding this in as the last panel that went on the back, which makes perfect sense when you think about it. I'm not sure if there's a way for me to take this apart and actually reuse that strip. If not, I'm just gonna have to measure how much came off of here and place an order. Actually, not even pulling this off. It's just ripping. Like this fabric is so brittle, probably from all the years of wear and tear, but also probably because I painted it with fabric paint. Okay, and so I've got my batting here. Here, I'll move you in a little bit closer. So the fabric itself is just disintegrating. So that goes to show you how old it was. But it's got this strip that's like clamps down like teeth. Well, we'll keep ripping and see what we find. So far, this batting looks like it's in really good shape underneath. Nothing looks ripped. So hopefully I can reuse that. So I'm gonna stop for a minute before I get any farther, and I'm gonna mark this with a Sharpie. I got too excited, I started ripping and didn't label this back panel with my Sharpie. So hold on, I'm gonna do that. I got to the top. This is the strip that I thought would be all around all of the edges, but it's just on the top. It's like this little thin, almost like a cardboard 1/2 inch strip that goes all the way across that was stapled to this on the back side, and then the fabric was folded over, but the side panels are attached to this double-sided metal strip that like clamps and pinches the fabric. So this is the stuff that I've not seen before because I've never done this before. So I'm gonna have to look that up and see how exactly to put that back together when I put this back panel on. But as for right now, it is pretty gnarly and mangled because when I pull on this, some of them break. So I'm not gonna try and reuse it. I'm just gonna rip it off and buy this new to replace this. I can see why this is used because this is a much sturdier situation than the cardboard. I have the back panel off all the way except for the bottom. So the next thing that has to come off is the piping that goes up and around the side, across the top, and down the other side. So I'm gonna work on pulling this off next. I'm gonna very carefully remove this batting because it's all stapled on top of this fabric. And then I'm gonna spend quite a bit of time removing all of these loose staples because those have all got to be out before I can peel back the front layers and the sides. I was trying to remove the bottom of this back piece. I realized, guess what guys, I shouldn't have started with the back panel. Maybe you guys already know that. I should have started with the bottom. I should have removed this first because underneath this is the piping and more of that cardboardy like paper strip that's holding that down. So I should have removed this first and then the back. So duly noted, I'll do that on the next one, but that's what I gotta do next. Okay, so as I'm working on this, I'm seeing how it went together because this is the inside wing tucked in and all the way through. And I'm hoping when I get it all apart, it'll be somewhat easy to be able to tuck that in, but it doesn't look easy. Hello again, I'm back. I'm upstairs and I'm ready to start a day 2 of ripping apart this same chair. This first chair, I broke my awl yesterday when I was pulling out staples. So I had to order a new one. And there are so many staples in this chair. It's crazy. Taking this apart is so much harder than taking apart any other chairs that I've ever done in the past, which hasn't been that many. It's mostly just been dining chairs, but this wingback chair, oh my goodness, I don't know what it's made out of, but for some reason, every single staple, when I go to pull it out, it snaps in half. So I then have to use my plier to get out those little pieces. Either that or I've got to hammer the rest of the little staple in so it doesn't cut me or like poke through the new fabric later. So it's been a very slow, tedious process. I actually broke a couple of nails pretty far back. I also grabbed some gloves because I ended up cutting my hands on a really sharp piece of metal. That metal tack strip is so sharp. So gloves is definitely a good idea. I've got those up here. And the other thing that's kind of slowing me down, which is totally worth it, is I've been writing everything down step by step, very detailed of how I've taken this apart and what I find as I'm taking it apart. So it's like I've got the fabric, I've got that paper strip, or I've got a metal strip with nails, or I've got the metal strip that clamps with the teeth. There's so many different things that I'm finding when I'm pulling this chair apart that I'm gonna need to reorder. So I'm taking a very detailed notes, and that took me a little bit longer. So I would say I probably worked on it for at least 4 hours, if not 5 hours, but that's okay, it's worth it. I actually Google searched my chair, a picture of it, and another chair came up that was very similar but had been reupholstered. And it was an antique chair, it was wingback, it was almost identical, it had the same legs, and the fabric was really close to what I'm thinking about using. And this chair is for sale for $6,200. So the fact that I got these 2 chairs for $50, I think that's a pretty good deal. And to me, it's totally worth it to take the time the next week or so, pulling these apart and getting them back together. I am back downstairs. I'm taking a break from ripping off the chairs, and I thought I would show you the fabric samples. These aren't all of them, but these are a few of the samples that I've ordered. This one here I've got plans for, as well as this really pretty green. All the rest of these were what I was looking through, mainly these colors, and this color here. I'll just move these aside real quick. I was trying to find a contrasting color to go with the fabric that I decided to use for these chairs. I fell in love with this swatch as soon as I saw it. It's a beautiful green. So this is the fabric that I'm gonna be using. And then these here are the 3 velvet swatches that are my favorite out of all of them to use for a contrasting piping color. These chairs have a ton of welt. I mean, they are everywhere. I didn't even realize it when I got started. It's got, you know, welting on the top of the cushion, on the bottom of the cushion, across the front here, down here, all around the arms, all around the back of the chair, all around the bottom. There's just a lot of it in general. I really didn't want to use the same fabric. I thought it would look cool to use a contrasting color. And I did share this in my stories over on Instagram, and a couple of you said you really liked the lighter shade because it was probably the most safe option. And then a lot of you really liked this olive garden green color, but most of you chose the chocolate brown. So I'm excited. I ended up ordering the chocolate brown. It's definitely going to be a lot more of a contrast. When I zoom up here, you can see that it does have a little bit of a darker chocolate brown stripe in here. So I'm excited about using it. It's very different from anything I've done before. It's definitely not the safest option that I could have chose, but that's kind of what makes it exciting. And I think it's gonna make it look really custom. So I'm excited about this option. I can't wait to see both of them done. So all of my fabric is here. I'm gonna roll this out, kind of look it over, make sure everything is okay. Wow, this is so beautiful. Oh my goodness. This velvet is so soft. It's so pretty. I'm actually really excited about how this looks, not only for this project, but I plan on using the same fabric, but in a different color on 2 antique sofas I found on Marketplace that I'm gonna be reupholstering as well. And I'm just, oh man, I'm just thrilled. This is great. Because the 2 different fabrics are rolled up together, I'm just gonna take a minute and unroll the velvet and then put the plaid upholstery fabric back in the bag that it came in, because I'm just gonna be working on this today. My goal is to cut out all the bias strips that I need to make the welt cord. So I'm gonna unroll this real quick. After taking my measurements, I decided to order just a little bit extra, just in case. So to get started, I'm just rolling out all of this beautiful chocolate brown velvet. I'm going to be using my self-healing cutting mat, using my 4-foot level to cut strips. And I'm cutting these all on a bias. I need a total of 1,000 inches of welt cord. So I've got quite a few pieces to cut. Next, I'm just pinning these together, and I'm paying close attention to the pile or the grain of the fabric because it's velvet. So it's gonna have a different sheen going one direction than the other. So I wanna make sure that the grain of the fabric follows the same direction as I'm sewing these together. Because the velvet is so thick, I decided to use upholstery thread for this. So I've been sewing for a little while now. I'm probably about halfway, I would say, with the first one, which I cut at over 500. I knew I would need at least 500 per chair. So I'm gonna keep working on this, plugging away, and my plan is to finish all of this today and then get my board out again so I can cut all of the fabric for the chairs. I had the realization that this plaid fabric that I'm using has a lighter cream stripe that doesn't go vertically and horizontally. It just goes vertically across this plaid fabric, and I didn't notice that in the sample size because it didn't repeat patterns in the size of the sample. And so when I got the fabric all unrolled, I realized, oh, I have to make sure that obviously you want to make sure your stripes are going straight, but I realized when I saw that color of stripe that I had to make sure that down the back of the chair, there needs to be that cream stripe going, you know, from top to bottom, and then it's got to continue across the seat and then down the front of the chair. So I've got to make sure that that seat cushion that I sew, which I've never made a box cushion before, I've got to make sure that that stripe is lined up like exactly, because if it's just like a 1/4 inch off, it'll be really noticeable. So it's gonna take me a little while to figure out how to place all of my template pieces that I saved from the old chair, how to place those on the fabric to cut them out so everything lines up. I'm gonna start by making the box cushion. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but I feel like it'll be easier to figure out where to line up that one thicker cream stripe. I feel like if I sew that cushion first, then I can adjust my back piece and my bottom pieces and everything else and line those stripes up perfectly with where that cushion has to sit. So I don't know if that's the correct way to do it, but that's the way I'm gonna do it because that's the way I feel most comfortable doing it. So I'm gonna start with sewing that box cushion, and once I have that done, then I'm gonna start reupholstering. And the other thing I'm gonna do is make sure that the cushion that I sew is flippable. So I want the stripes to line up perfectly on both sides in case anything ever got damaged, or let's say a kid came over and scribbled on it with marker, who knows what could happen. I feel like it would be a smart thing to do to line up both sides. So when I flip it, the stripes are still perfectly lined up. That's my plan. I'm gonna get back to sewing. Well, I just finished sewing up all of the welts. I don't know if that's gonna be enough. My calculations say that'll be enough, but if I need to make more, I will. Next, I'm gonna walk you over here to my kitchen island where I have my fabric and my mat set up again. Instead of starting with the upholstery on the chair, I think it's a good idea to sew this cushion, and I'm gonna show you why. So this fabric, it's beautiful. I absolutely love it. It's from Covey Fabrics, and it has an amazing texture to it. It's really, really thick, and I think it's gonna look great on these wingback chairs. And I thought if I start with the cushion, and since I have 2 of these, I think what I'm gonna do is cut this apart very carefully and use it as a template to cut out my pieces. But I'm gonna cut out the fabric the same because I'm thinking that way when I flip the cushion over, it'll line up perfectly on both sides. If I just cut the fabric willy-nilly, if I needed to flip the cushion, it wouldn't look right. I'm gonna take a lot of measurements, take a lot of notes, and start cutting this apart and laying this out and getting my pieces cut. Before I get started, I know you guys are gonna ask, I just wanted to show you quickly which fabric it is. If you're interested in this fabric, it is KD942, and I ordered 12 yards, 6 per chair. If I need to order more, I will, but that should be enough. So I have my first piece cut out, but what I wanna do here is line this up on here so these 3 cream colored stripes are like perfectly centered. So I need this one dead centered of my seat cushion for the top and the bottom. I'm gonna pop a few pins in here. That way it doesn't move on me while I'm tracing it or cutting it. Now I'm just gonna repeat the pattern above this and make sure to keep all of those stripes lined up. right, the next thing that I need to cut out is the panel on the side of the box cushion. And what I'd like to do, if I can, is have one piece from the corner all the way around the side to the front to the other side, and then leave the back panel open just like they did here for the zipper panel, and make that separately. So if you look close, there's almost like an envelope style tucked in on this side here, and then the zipper goes all the way around to the other side. It's got a similar thing on that. So I'm gonna recreate that as closely as I possibly can. So I've got all of my pieces cut for both chairs, and I just need to take a measurement, order a couple of zippers, and I've also ordered some thread that matches this really well, and it hasn't come in yet. So I can't start sewing this today, which is fine because it's already getting dark and I'm ready to call it a day anyway. So I'll resume this as soon as I have my zipper and my thread, hopefully within the next couple of days. Well, the time has come. I can't put it off any longer. I was trying to wait for a warmer day, and I don't think we're gonna get a warmer day, and got to get to sanding these chair legs. The base here is chalk painted. I chalk painted that a long time ago. It should be very easy to just take it off. It's just one layer. I don't even think I waxed it. I'm just gonna use my orbital sander here, and I just wanna sand it and then move it back inside. So I wanted to take a minute and show you this here. I have never sewn a welt like this or made a box cushion, so I wanted to practice it. So I got two different practice pieces here. This one I used the darker brown thread, and this one here I used the green thread that matches. You can see there it totally disappears, and I wanted to see which one to use because I wasn't really sure. Honestly, when I pull this, you cannot see either the brown thread or the green thread. The only thing I will say is when I was practicing pinning these, I did have a little bit of trouble initially here. You can see that my stripes are just a tad off, but that's good. I'm glad that I practiced on these because I realized how important it is to pay really close attention to every single stripe when pinning, because just because the center ones might line up doesn't mean this one will line up. If you've pulled the fabric a little bit or stretched it, I'm really glad that I practiced on these. It was very helpful. I'm getting ready to sew the welt onto the seat cushion. I've got 4 of these, obviously, a top and bottom for each cushion. Both the top and bottom panels of both cushions have this welt cord. So I'm gonna run these through the sewing machine before adding the side panel. You can see I've already sewn on the welt to the panel, and now I've got my side panel pinned here. This kind of gives you an idea of how many pins I've got in here because I really want all of these stripes to line up perfectly. So I ended up using a whole lot of pins. And as far as the back panel goes, that's what's gonna have the zipper, and it is gonna wrap around both sides. That way I have this little envelope here on both sides of the panel. When you extend the zipper panel a little bit around the edges, it makes it so you can open the cushion cover a little bit further to make it easier to get the insert in. And because this is a box cushion with kind of like a T on the front that wraps around the arms, I'm hoping that sewing it this way will make it a lot easier to get that insert in. So I'm gonna run this through the machine, and then I'll be attaching the bottom with the welt cord to the side panel here. So this is the real moment of truth. I'm gonna flip this right side out and see if all of these stripes lined up the way that I wanted them to. It worked. Now that I have my zipper panel all sewn, it's time to add it to the back of the box cushion. Now, I've never done this before, so I'm a little nervous. Hopefully the whole back of this cushion and the folds that I made on the sides, hopefully it all lines up. What I'm gonna do is pin it together in place first, and then obviously sew it. Just brought both cushions up here and put the insert in, and I have to say I'm really happy. They're not perfect, but considering I have never done this before, I've never made a box cushion or a T cushion or whatever these are called, never sewn a zipper, a back panel, or anything. So considering all that, I'm very happy with them. What I'm most thrilled about is that I figured out how to line these stripes up down the front of the cushions. I was having trouble with that in the beginning because the fabric was stretching just a little bit. When I practiced, they were coming out a little bit off. So I'm so glad I was able to figure that out. Now that I have these done, I'm gonna move on to working on the chair. Did sand all of the legs down. I'm gonna get them stained, and then it's gonna be on to the upholstery. Now that I've got the cushions done, I know where that stripe is gonna line up on this fabric and all the way up the front of the back here. So I'm really excited to start actually upholstering the chair, finally, after all this time.
And one more thing before I start upholstering is I've got to stain the wood on these legs, and I've got to let them dry.
I've been upstairs for the last couple of hours working on the seat. What I ended up doing was laying out my fabric with this center stripe lined up, which also lines up with the cushions that I sewed. What I ended up doing was laying the fabric on here upside down. That way I could pin and then sew these corners. After I had it sewed, I flipped it over and I was able to staple it around. I also tucked the 3 sides down under and stapled those. I had to remove this batting, but I just kind of left it hanging there so I can reuse it. Now, I'm at the point where I need to make one of these front panel pieces. This was on the front of the chair, and it had like a foam on the back of it. So I've removed the foam, pulled out all those staples that were attached to that foam because I'm gonna reuse that. And I'm gonna take a measurement of this, cut out the piece that I need, obviously making sure that I cut out a piece that lines up dead center with this because I want that stripe to continue all the way down the front. And when I attach it, I'm gonna also attach this cardboard strip here because I noticed that this has it on the back as well. So I'm guessing what needs to happen is I need to staple that piece on, flip it up, staple this on, and then fold it back over, if that makes sense. All right, so here is the panel. I've got my welt cord all pinned in place. So I'm gonna run this through my sewing machine real quick, and then we'll head back over to the chair. I have this front panel on. I've got it all the way around both sides. If you guys are curious about what staple gun I've been using, it's this one here. I'll link it down below. I've got it linked in my Amazon storefront. I love this. I've got an air compressor. Here's the picture of the box. And here are the staples that I'm using. So I know this looks like a ratty mess, but this is the piece that I'm cutting. I've got it all labeled so I can remember. I actually drew on it which direction I wanted the stripes to go, and I cut out my piece. I actually cut 2 out because I need 2 right arms, obviously because I've got 2 chairs. Instead of going back and recutting everything after I do this first chair, I figure I might as well just cut both of them out at the same time. Now that I've got those arm pieces cut out for each arm, I'm gonna take a minute and get some new batting and just cover this really well. As you can see, when I pulled off the fabric before and kind of pulled this apart and left it in not the worst shape, but it is a little lumpy bumpy. So I'm gonna take a minute and I'm gonna add another layer of batting over top of this just to make sure that it's nice and full. I am at what I would say is probably the trickiest part so far. So I've got this arm done. As you can see, I've pleated it all the way around. So this piece of fabric wraps around the inside and then over the arm here, it's stapled underneath, and it also continues around the front. I actually started here because I wanted to make sure all of these stripes here we're going really straight, and then I knew that if I got those straight, I'd be able to continue around the side and then pull it across. This piece is tucked down in here and pulled out through the other side. It's stapled underneath this batting, and it's also pulled through the back and stapled back there. So now that I've got that done, I've got to do the other arm, which doing one arm is easy enough, but matching the stripes up so they actually hit in the exact same spot on both arms is going to be a little tricky. So I've measured this and it's 3 inches from the edge of this chair. So I'm going to try really hard to replicate that on the other arm here. And this took me a few hours to get done. Hopefully this one goes a little quicker because it's getting kind of late in the day. So what I'm doing here is pulling the fabric out through this bottom piece. And once I have all of my stripes lined up, I will staple it to this piece of wood here. But for now, I'm just gonna pull it through. I'm gonna make some relief cuts here and here on the inside. So I'm using my awl to just make these pleats here, and I don't know if you can see it, but I'm trying to get this blue stripe to line up with itself as it goes around the top of this arm here, as it makes an arc. And obviously I'm folding them in the same direction as the other side, like mirrored, and I'm gonna try and place them all in the same spot. It is on the other side as well. I'm just gonna trim this up a little bit. And once I create the piece that goes here, this will look so much better and it'll all make sense. I've just started working on the front right wing. I've got it all tucked in the back, and now I'm just lining this up. these stripes here, so they go up the side arm and then up the wing as well. So I'm paying really close attention to that. I've also got it tucked underneath and pulled out the other side. I've got to be really careful to make sure that all of those stripes on the front of the wing are lined up and hold those in place while I simultaneously staple the back. And this wing will wrap around here and kind of stop about right where that stripe is there. And then there'll be a line of piping that I'll have to install over the top of that before I put the side panel that's kind of shaped like an L back on the side. I have everything stapled on that I can. It's time to start the welt. So I'm gonna start it right here because if you look over here at this other chair, that's where the welt starts. There's no welt under the arm. This welt is attached to this piece here, but there's no second piece and there's no welt here other than around the very bottom, but we'll save that for last. So I'm gonna start right here in the corner and go up and around. I just got done making this piece, which looks like this. It's cardboard, it's got nails on the top and the bottom, and it's got this piping around it. It was a little bit of a trick because once again, I was trying to line this stripe up with this stripe that's coming up front of the chair here. Lines up really nice. This is how the chair is looking so far. I still have to make one more, and then I've got to put the 3 panels on, one on each side and then the back. Working on this arm placket took a little bit of time. I had to do a lot of relief cuts because both the top and bottom have rounded edges, and I had to use shorter staples so they didn't shoot through the cardboard. Even though it was a little tedious, eventually I got the hang of it. And it wasn't very hard to add all the welt cord around the edges. I just stapled that in and set those aside for later. I'm ready to put on this piece here. I've got all of my welting in place. I've got my batting back on, and I've got my piece cut out, but I've got to line this stripe up right here with this stripe right here. So I'm really gonna take my time here on the side, making sure that I get this perfectly straight. And I've also got a piece of this cardboard strip here that's gonna go underneath here to hold that really tight. So I've got the bottom part of this panel on, and I've got that cardboard strip across the front of this rolled arm here. So I'm gonna install this piece next. And what I've gotta do is run this metal strip all the way across here and then down the front. But I'll show you what this looks like. I don't know if you can see that, but it's got the holes in them. That's where I'm gonna be putting a staple through every single hole. And then on the other side, it's got really sharp teeth, and that's what you tuck the fabric into. And then I'm gonna use a mallet to pinch it down, and that'll pull the fabric really, really tight all the way around the chair here. So I kind of feel like a broken record, but I'm gonna say it again. I've never done this before, so I'm well aware of the fact that it may take me a little bit of time to get it to where I'm happy with it. This is definitely gonna be a learning process for me. You know, by the time I get one side done, the other side's gonna be a lot easier. And then the second chair behind me here that I've gotta do after this, hopefully be a breeze. So I'm gonna start with this. So the part of the tack strip that has the hole in it needs to be facing upward, and then you want the teeth on the bottom side. That way you grab it and pinch it and close it. I've got the chair laid down on its side because I was working on this piece here. So I've got this cardboard here, and I've got the metal all the way around, and I'm gonna work my way up the chair, and I'm also gonna add the strip that goes here so I can fold this under and tuck that in this portion right here, getting that tucked in and really straight. And then I will wrap it around, staple it all the way down the side and on the bottom here. But this section did take a little bit of time because, as you can see, I've got all these stripes, and I wanted to make sure this laid flat and then it laid flat going all the way up the side of the chair. So here you can see I'm just trimming off the excess fabric before tucking it in. When I cut off that excess fabric, I saved a little piece, you can see here, because that had to wrap around the front of the arm and get stapled down. This is the area where I'm going to be putting on that front arm placket, so that'll all make sense in the end. Once I had that side done, I flipped the chair over and started working on the other side. Here you can see that I'm adding all the welt cord across the back and down both sides. And to finish off the bottom edge, there's going to be another row of welting all the way around the bottom before I put that bottom panel on underneath the chair seat. So here I'm just snipping the velvet so I can trim off about 1 inch of that welt cord. That way I can pull the velvet back down, fold it up and under the fabric around the chair leg. Then I move back on to stapling all that metal strip that's going to hold on the back panel of the chair. I have all of this metal strip on, so now I've got to put the back panel on. I'm going to get my rubber mallet and kind of close those up a little bit so I don't have to push them in quite as far and they kind of hold the fabric. So sorry about the lighting, the sun is really shining in, but I just wanted to show you this fabric here. I'm gonna trim and then I'm gonna tuck it down in there and then use the rubber mallet and then of course trimming the edge as I go down the chair. So I got the back panel on and I've been working on adding this last bit of welt cord onto the bottom, and I wanted to show you how I'm getting around the leg. On the bottom side, I'm stapling it across, but then when I get to here, I'm turning the welt over, I'm making a relief cut, just a little snip here, so the raw edge can tuck up under this on the side and on the other side of the leg. And I'll do another relief cut here and slide that up under. That way I can continue down and around and connect it on that fourth leg. This is the part that we've all been waiting for. I'm so excited. This is the bottom panel that's just gonna go on the bottom of the chair seat to finish it off. After working on this for weeks and weeks, I'm so happy with how it turned out. I'm especially glad that I went with the chocolate brown contrasting piping. I think that added a little detail to the chair. I definitely learned a lot on this first chair, and now that I have a much better idea of everything that it takes to reupholster a wingback chair, I'm hoping that I'm able to get the second chair done a whole lot quicker than this one. Of course, I'm not going to be filming every step or writing down every step so I can remember. I've already got all the fabric pieces cut out for that second chair. It definitely should go a lot quicker now that I've learned a lot and I have a much better idea of what I'm doing. If you made it all the way to the end, then you probably learned just as much as I did. This is quite a big project to tackle, but it was a lot of fun and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.